Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I think there are a lot of things that 197 is doing really well, but as a parent and an educator, one of the most impressive things to me is the focus on community building that's happening in every building, and the time spent to really focus on those transition years. So for example, this year, kindergarten, 5th grade, and 9th grade all got to start a day early to do some of that community building, and research shows that students who are given more support in those transition years are more likely to graduate. So I think that that is something that I am really impressed by and hope will continue in the next several years. Thank you.
Bob Reese, thanks for coming, everybody. I paced my kitchen all morning, and it took me 5 minutes, and I have 2.5. So if I can't get this all out in the first question, I'll finish it in the second. Okay, so I think that there's education in storytelling. And to educate myself to answer the first question, I went to the 2019-2020 annual report for District 197. And there are a lot of good things going on in the district. There's advanced placement courses, college and school courses, the CAPS program, athletic activities, and quite frankly, I was pretty impressed that 91% of students graduate in 4 years. I thought that was all really outstanding. And I learned about the world's best workforce goals. And they listed 5 goals there, and every one is worthwhile. Every single one is important and worthwhile. I was disappointed that the first 3 areas that were listed were not reported, and it was blamed on COVID-19. But I felt that if the results in those areas were met or exceeded, they would have been listed. I was also disappointed that one of the goals is all students are ready for career in college. And if you go home with one statistic today, I hope that it's you remember that in 2020, in the senior class of 2020, 29% of graduates met that goal. Not all, but 29%. 29% of the graduates were proficient in reading, math, science, and English. I have 30 seconds. So I dug further and I looked at 10 years of data from the Minnesota Department of Education. And it shows that not only in District 197, but across the state, reading, math, and science scores are substandard. And I'll stop there and I'll finish the story next time.
Hi, my name is John Chandler, and of course I am a current school board member, so I think you're doing a lot of great things. I think probably the most obvious is we have we're able to attract a lot of school board candidates, which is kind of interesting. But I also think that if you just look at all of our schools and have been into the buildings in the last few years, you know that, in my opinion, and I was a part of this, I think the best thing that we've done is we've improved all the infrastructures of our schools. When our music and science wings hadn't been touched since the high school was built, you know, that's a room for improvement. And so I think just looking at the students, hearing the students, and seeing the pride that that they have, knowing that we invested in them, and they feel a huge sense of belonging when they go into the buildings and they see that the cafeterias are new, the gyms have been redone, we've added gym space, we've done all these wonderful things for them. It just creates an environment that's easier to learn, it's more conducive to learning. Talking to the teachers and the staff who now get to work in a facility that has better lighting, it's maybe warmer in the winter, maybe it's cooler when it actually ever gets warm in the state. I think that those are wonderful things that it's nice to drive around and not be embarrassed by parking lot needing to be paved, or buses not having enough space to navigate a parking lot because parents are dropping off and picking up. And so I just feel a huge sense of pride that I think our infrastructure is that we invested in is the best thing that we have going right now. I thank all of you for your support at that referendum a few years ago, and help us keep those buildings operating for the future. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Good afternoon, not morning. I'm John Vopel, for school board like everybody else. Number one, I want to say thank you to the volunteers who are hosting this, and maybe give them a round of applause. I don't think they're paid for this. Number two, our early educators, child care providers, teachers, related service providers here who are comfortable saying you're a teacher, you work with students. If you raise your hand, I honestly think we got to give them a round of applause. Super hard job, right? So thank you. I think I want to talk about the service of the school board and what they've done during COVID-19, but also the staff in 197. It is remarkable how they have served our kids. There's a lot more to do, but I think number one, that's something they've done really well. We've had a masking requirement. Our kids are back in school. They need to be. Just listen to the sounds of kids. It's awesome, right? Number two, COVID-19. There are a lot of good things that 197 has done regarding COVID-19, right? So in-person learning, I mentioned that. Masks, they're keeping our students safe and in schools. Two, they provided Wi-Fi hotspots to families who don't have internet access. That's something I learned about recently. It's pretty amazing. It's a lot of work. They used to have a COVID-19 dashboard, which was fantastic. I don't know if it's active. I'm hoping it'll become active. Whoever's here listening. Meals. They provided meals. Again, the staff distributed meals to the community in COVID-19, really creative responses to COVID-19. So I think that is something that is, there's a lot of good that's happened with 197. Engaged community. You're all here. Lots of candidates. That tells you something about the importance of our schools. That doesn't just happen. So I think that's really good. The last thing is levy. Jennifer McCarthy is sitting over by the Vote Yes levy committee signs. We got to support the levy. If you don't support the levy, that's over, I think, $1 million in cuts to programs, to services for our kids. Vote for the levy, because otherwise, it's a cut in funding. Your taxes won't change. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marcus Hill, and thank you for being here. I appreciate the PTAs of the respective schools, Garlough, Moreland, and Heritage, for organizing this event. As many have said, the school board and the staff have done an amazing job, I believe, and there are many things that they've done well. The response to COVID-19 has been exceptional. The ability to pivot on a dime and respond to our children's needs during that time was phenomenal. They were able to activate technology for our kids and making sure that they had all the tools they needed to learn from home. They made sure the children had meals, as John called out. That was phenomenal. And I think the board did a fantastic job of recognizing the social and emotional needs of kids and beginning to address that. As we go forward and we think about what's important for our kids, I think that the board is doing a great job and the district is doing a great job of making sure that our kids' needs are being met. We're thinking about equity and inclusion in very different ways, and that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. When we think about equity and inclusion, we can think about many different things. That's making sure that our kids are comfortable in coming to school and thinking about their social and emotional needs, whether it's a kid with a disability and feeling like they have the ability to show up and be their full selves and have equal access to everything that everyone else has access to, and making sure that our kids who I'm sorry, I was feeling well yesterday, and so I'm working through a couple of things here, but making sure that our kids all have equal access, whether it's racial access or disabilities or kids who have special abilities in learning. You know, we have kids, my wife and I, who have a spectrum of needs. We have ones who just went off to college. We have kids who have special needs, and we want to make sure that all of those needs are met, that those kids have equal access, that we can unlock the opportunities for all of our kids, and meeting those social and emotional needs and meeting the expectations of all of our community members is paramount, and I think the district is doing a good job in recognizing that. There's a lot of work to be done there. As a school board member, it's one of the reasons I'm passionate about being on the board and the work that I intend to do among the many other things. So thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Larson. I'm so excited to see that there's so many people here. Wish there was even more, but I challenge all of you to now go home and tell like 5 friends about what you heard and what you learned today. But so overall, this question was super hard for me. I thought about a billion things I wanted to talk about, but when I looked at, there's a theme running through all the things that I find wonderful in 197, and that was that our district, our teachers, our administration are adaptable, and they're always looking to improve what they're doing. And I've seen this over 10 years of having kids in the school. When I look back at where the kids started 10 years ago, or even before that, when they were going to close Mendota, and now look at our enrollment, and a lot has changed. The buildings have changed thanks to the bond that passed. But a few years ago when we did the strategic framework, I was so impressed by the teachers and the staff and the community that were there and how they talked so passionately about what they wanted to keep doing, what they needed to change, knowing how they act as teachers. They knew what the school needed. So I think we have a great strategic framework going forward. And then the pandemic hit. And our teachers and our staff and our families and our kids scrambled and figured it out every day. They were challenged, they adapted, they changed, and they improved. And I'm so impressed. And I know that we have a long way to go now, especially with the social emotional needs of the kids, to meet everybody where they're at and where we need to go. But I have all the faith in the district that we can do it. So as a part of the school board, I hope to get to make the strategic framework a reality, especially those social emotional needs of the kids. And then on the side of that, the school board also knows that the levy needs to pass. So I'm going to copy John and put in a little plug for that. Vote yes for the levy this year. So thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Tim Owney. Sorry my bio was kind of thin, but I guess I took it literally because it sounded like it was all about me, but that's what I thought a bio was. I actually do have opinions and ideas for the school board, so hopefully those will have a chance to be expressed. I agree there's a long list of good things, but I thought long and hard, and how do you narrow it to just one? And I very clearly remember about a year and a half ago reading the district announced, proudly and rightly so, of how well they were performing, or increasing the performance in educating Latino students. And I remember reading this, and it kind of struck me that, boy, there's a whole bunch of, it made me get outside of myself. And I realized we are a very diverse community. I think that's a very big strength of this district. And hearing that and understanding that and seeing the experience of my kids, I want to further that and embrace that. I don't think it comes at the expense of anybody. It makes the district stronger. And so that is my one thing. I think the school district did very, very well, and I'm sure they're going to continue doing it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Rondo. I guess if I thought the school board was doing great, I wouldn't be here up here. So I think there's 10 people here, 8 people here. I think the elementary school is doing nice, the middle school is doing well. I was looking at some of the same information as Doctor, and if 50% of the kids aren't doing reading and aren't doing math at level, whatever that means, that's not a victory, I would argue. So I was looking at the data and I came up, well, why is high school only college prep? It shouldn't be, right? And so most of these items are sitting here going, they're only college prep. Well, there's trade schools, there's electricians, there's plumbers, there's other things. We need a lot of that stuff. And so I don't think the public school, I don't think any school should just be college prep. I think it should be all of the above. And so somehow the board, me, if I get there, I want to really sit back and say, how do we hit those micro groups? You know, college might be 60%. Congratulations, you're going to have $250,000 in debt in 4 years. Go for it. But not all 60% of those kids should go to college. And so, whether it's Two Rivers or Sibley or otherwise, we need to give a lot of people a lot of options to actually succeed in life, because there's a lot of ways to get there. There isn't just one way. There isn't just two ways. Sibley has to be 5, 6, 10 different ways to actually be successful. So I do think our elementary seem to be great. I've got a cousin who's in Somerset, and he absolutely loves it. He loves his teachers. I want to support the teachers because most of the teachers love their kids. I mean, they just love their students, and so that's important. If we can support them, they can do their job, we can move on. If we can get out of the way and let ideas come through and take the good ones, then we're probably okay. But if we're autocratic, but if we're autocratic and we tell them what they're going to do, that's not going to succeed. So I'm a little intense. I apologize. I will stay after if anyone wants to ask me a question or see if I calm down, then life is good. I am cold. I should have worn a jacket, and I'm going to take this sweatshirt. So maybe that's too bad. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.